There we go. Okay, so here's my 40-second video, which is 50 plus minutes of flying time. This is me getting it, once I got it into the air to fly it, and again, it was a bloody nightmare. All right, so the DC flight restriction zone, this is it. We're going to go into the details. And if you're in this area here, you need to get permission. Okay, so there's what's called the special flight rules area. That's everything. Then there's the FRZ, the flight restriction zone. That is, and I'll show you that in a minute, it's a small area. But then it gets a little confusing because the special flight rules area includes the FRZ. So we'll go into that. So first off, all of it's based off of the Reagan International VOR. All the distances and everything are based off of that. Okay, there's the FRZ. It's basically a 15 nautical mile range. If you're inside that, your drone, unless you build it yourself and it communicates with nobody, will not fly. And if you can get a drone into the airborne, somebody sees it and has any kind, you'll get into big trouble without approval. There's a 7 mile range. It's even worse to try to fly a drone within there, and I'll talk about that. And then finally is the 30 nautical mile range. So when I talk about the special flight rule area, it's really going to be from this red ring out to this, that 15, 30 miles. Okay, so you want to fly within the FRZ. That food pantry that I was supporting, that I volunteer out with my fiance, which was right inside, it was 12 miles. So I had to do that. You got to ask God. But the nice thing is, if you ask nicely and correctly, God actually will listen. So God, in this case, is the FAA and the TSA. You don't have to just deal with one organization. You're dealing with two governmental agencies. This, and we'll have a page for you that has all the links in order that if you ever have to do this, you can follow. But this guide will walk you through exactly what you need to do in order to do it. But you got to be Part 107 rated to operate within 15 nautical miles. Between the 15 and 30 we'll get at, you don't need it. But inside 15, you have to be Part 107 rated. Okay. No recreation. Nobody's flying a drone within 15 miles of the DCA VOR for recreation, unless they're taking high risk and willing to try to get away with it. Okay. You must have a compelling need. Now, it says in that instruction, the compelling need. Now, mine was, I'm flying it as a promotional video plus a tool to communicate with Montgomery County. You have, however, real estate drone operators that take real estate videos and stuff that you can make it a pretty easy, compelling need to do it. All right, it starts with a waiver. You got to get a waiver, which means you need to log in and create an account with the FAA and TSA. Nice thing is, TSA and that, they'll actually listen if you contact them, and they'll communicate with you. I couldn't believe it. So you got to complete, first thing you complete is this thing called the CGI COA waiver. It's on the sheet that you'll have access to. And basically, it seems a little odd, but if you, this is one of the attachments. You got to have a list of attachments you have to send to the FAA to get approved in order for you to fly. This is one of them. All right, you also need to complete a waiver. That website I showed you is the tool to complete the waiver. When you do it, it will give you this output, which is another attachment that goes in to your package. Actually, no, this is the one that goes in with the attachments. So, all right, manifest. If you're flying within 15 nautical miles, you plus a observer need to be manifested, and that observer cannot change. So you set up, you get approval, and your observer gets sick. Oh, I'll just have somebody else do it. The reason is that the FAA does a background check before they approve your waiver. So you have to have both you and the observer manifested. Okay, here are the attachments. As you can see, all the different attachments in that drone video I did. These were all the attachments that I had to build and include and upload into the system. And then here's my purpose and justification. That is one place you put your purpose and justification. Because you have to also include an operator letter and a client letter. The operator letter, here was my operator letter, basically stated who I was, what my license is, what am I doing, why am I doing it, how am I doing it. The other one there, the food pantry, wrote and said, we are asking AJ to do this because we need it for this, that, and the other. And that both those are attachments that go into your package. Cost is not a justification. You can't say, well, I'm not going to hire a helicopter pilot to come fly over and do this filming for me because it's much cheaper to use a drone. You can't use cost as a reason. But what you can say is, I can't get a helicopter pilot low enough to operate without getting people pissed off in order to get my footage. That's justified. Just don't use cost. Okay. So remember I said about that 7 mile, that was that blue ring, 7 miles. If you're flying within 7 miles of the DCA VOR, the client is either the government, and you have full justification and approval from the government, or you need a government sponsor to sponsor that entity in order to do that. What I don't know is if there are any real estate people to somehow get permission to take videos within 7 miles. I don't know. And oh, by the way, when you're flying your drone, you have to have a law enforcement officer right there watching you. So you'd have to contact a local law enforcement agency to coordinate to have somebody there monitoring your activity, which is why I say forget about it. Application names. Additionally, you have to, in this package, have maps that show you where you're flying and what you're doing. The nice thing is, believe it or not, it shocked me, the FAA has a tool called Visualize. This thing's awesome. I can't believe the FAA had this for us to be able to do this. And what it does is you put in a starting point and an end point, and it will give you the radial beam and all that kind of information that the FAA wants, where to pinpoint. And so you use this tool, and then all you do is you use Snippet or something to take screenshots of it. And those images end up to be part of your package. Again, your start point is the Washington, D.C., the Reagan International VOR, and it's right there. When you open up the tool and you have to zoom into the DCA airport, you can find that dot. You set that dot as your starting point, you set your end point, and the tool will determine and calculate a dot. Just take screenshots of it. All right. Then the final thing you have to do is you got to give some basic information about your drone. You can find this online about your drone. It's easy for me. I have a Mavic 3 Pro. I just looked up what its specs are and all that. I included that. And loss link procedures. And that's usually what you'll say is, if my drone breaks contact, my plan was for it to fly at the altitude it was, climb up to 300 feet, fly to the point of takeoff, and fly straight down. So if you lose contact and you're specifying to the FAA, right?
Is that just for a command and control link, or does that include GPS?
If it loses anything, lost, you'll actually not really. If you, first off, you need to have line of sight. You need to be able to see it. So it's more like I can no longer control my drone.
Yeah.
What is it going to do? If it loses GPS, I think you can still control it back. I'm not sure.
There's some other things that automated things.
Yeah, no.
What would it do?
And you can have it. Lost link can be, since I'm keeping it in sight, I'm going to keep it there, not do anything. But then what's going to happen? It's going to eventually lose power and just drop down. All right. You also need to have photos of your drone that you have to upload. Here's a picture of my drone. I get better looking stickers, but you have to put your Part 107 rating, your license information on your drone. And you can get that online. You can, there are sites you can order little stickers and then you have to wait. It says it takes up to 15 days for approval. I was shocked. It took, this was between Christmas and New Year's. It was about 6 days. Shocking. I did find out when I had multiple conversations with multiple different people, because as I said, I screwed up everything imaginable. DC gets about 2,000 drone requests a year under this system to fly within the FRZ. Only 2,000. 2,000 might sound like a lot. I think that's a pittance, and I was shocked that it was so low. Probably because people don't want to go through this. All right. Your application, you can put an application in for up to a 30-day window. Do it. Do it. Because weather, issues, your availability, whatever, take advantage of the full 30 days. So figure out though, okay, it's going to take 15 days when I put it in, and then so I'll take at the end of the 15 days, I'll set it for that day plus 30 days. That way, like I had a weather cancel the first weekend. The second weekend, I botched the 24-hour call. I'll get to that in a minute. So that was number 2 shot. The third one, my third weekend, is my final shot. Go. You will receive an email, whether you were approved or rejected. Nice thing is they tell you why you were rejected, gives you an explanation, fix it, resubmit it. Now, it can take an additional 15 days. I found it took 2 days. So I think for the most part, shocking as may see it, government setup that's responsive was. All right, when you're approved, this is where I screwed up. So again, you're going to receive additional guidance. That guidance, like anything from the government, it's not, okay, I kind of understand that, I'm going to just do it, get it close. It's got to be exact. Also, and I'll explain this in a minute, keep your FAA, you'll get, it'll be emailed to you, keep that email and that because you're going to need it. I didn't realize it at the time, just another one of my screw ups. Okay, you think, okay, I got it. I'm done. I can go fly. I got my authorization. The FAA approved it. Within this, you're going to get some amplifying guidance. And this is very important. First, you're going to get a second email that's going to say, here's what we expect of you 24 hours prior. Actually, it's more like I found out this. If you're flying at Saturday morning, you have to have it in by 4 p.m. the day before. But you have to have it. I screwed this up the morning, that second weekend morning. I went, oh crap, I forgot this. Forget about it, not happening. Because they send that notification out to like 12 or 14 different government agencies that you are operating. Second, you have to do a 15-minute prior call with you and your observer next to you, talking to the National Capital Region Coordination Center. And they're going to brief you. You're going to have this briefing that you're going to listen to 15 minutes prior. So the nice thing here says, 15 minutes prior to each flight. So I made a mistake. It didn't screw me up, but it could have. They were nice to me. I went, well, my window starts at 8. I'm having a problem with my drone. I'll call when I'm ready. So now I'm about 8:20. When I called, they went, we expected your call at 7:45. Your window started at 8. I said, well, it's 15 minutes prior to my flight. 15 minutes prior to the window start. So if your window is 8 a.m., that call, they have it on a board. At 7:45, we're expecting a call from you. The operator must provide, they will, even though I asked for a 4-hour window, they're only going to approve 2-hour window. That's it, initially. So that's your first. So at 7:45, you call, you're approved to do from 8 to 10. At 9:45, not 9:46, not 9:44, at 9:45, you call them again for your 10 o'clock window. Like with the government, it's got to be exact. All right, this is an example of the 24-hour. Now it might change, so it depends on what you have. This was the format. I took all the information the first time I did the 24-hour format, and I put it in. It wasn't exact, and I got eviscerated. Do it exactly the way it says for you to do. Okay, I'm thinking, I've screwed up so many different ways, but I'm here on my flight day. Everything's good. I got my approval. I'm there. I had people from the food pantry excited. They're waiting for me. We're getting ready to go. Drone didn't take off. Wouldn't budge. What is going on? I learned something. Mini-me, otherwise known as DJI. FAA, TSA approved it, but DJI, your drone, didn't know it. And because DJI didn't know it, unbeknownst to me, DJI wouldn't let my drone take off. There's a thing called geolock. And I learned this for DJI and most DJI drones. This thing is what prevents you from flying anywhere that DJI thinks you're not allowed to fly without permission. And it will stop you from doing it. So you have to go, and I did this the morning of my flight. So it doesn't mean you can't fix this the morning of your flight, because I did. You got to go to DJI FlySafe. You need to make sure you have an account with DJI FlySafe with all your information, and then you do an unlock request. Now, the nice thing is you can do this early, but you need to have your FAA waiver, and you need to upload it to the DJI's FlySafe unlock request. That's where you use the waiver, because somebody at DJI receives this. Unbeknownst to me, they advertise they'll do this within an hour and give you approval. Actually, about 15 minutes. But they review it and then they approve it, and then you're allowed to go ahead and fly. You need to have all your drone control, all that information loaded into the DJI FlySafe, and you have to specify what you're doing. You use there's two things: custom unlock or area unlock. Forget about area unlock, because that's unlocks your drone to fly all. I could have flown anywhere around the FRZ if they did area unlock. That's not going to be approved. You have to use custom unlock. It can be done in advance. This is what I learned. So you could do this days, weeks ahead, but you got to be specific. I'm going to fly my drone using this waiver. I've uploaded it. I'm flying from this time to this time. In the DJI FlySafe app. There is a way where you specify the borders of that flight area. Of course, it's got to be within the borders that you've specified that you're allowed to fly. But you all have to draw it. I drew it. And I'm like, okay, that's about it. And I'm like, okay, I want to get the shot of this along the line. I flew my drone, and it was like hitting the fence. Would not budge, because that's where I drew my fence the first time. Oh crap. So on another battery change, I went back into FlySafe. I expanded my boundaries. I submitted another waiver. I got it. I uploaded it into my controller. And it flew beyond that. As I said, 15 minutes. And once the approval is received, you load that approval into your controller, so that now your controller will allow your drone to take off. That's what allowed my drone to take off. You can do multiple approvals. I remember I screwed up the first one. I could have 5, 6 different ones. I just have to specify which approval I'm flying. Okay, the 15-minute call. Schedule launch window. You and your observer, they're going to ask, each person has to speak. You know, they're going to tell the observer, you have to be available for me to call you during the entire window. Because if something happens, let's say presidential airlift or something, they're going to call you and tell you, land your drone now. So that observer's got to be available at all times. Again, they'll only approve the 2-hour window, and then you call 15 minutes prior to the next. And if you're going to take more than a 30-minute break, you just call up. I got real friendly in our NCRCC during this, and they were helpful, but just keep them in the loop. And then you make sure you tell them you're done for the day. Okay, so that was the FRZ. That's the 15 miles. What about, I think here, beyond 15 miles, but within 30 miles of DCA? Well, you don't need, you heard, I don't know how much you're familiar with the Lance app, what the Lance app is. Lance, and I'm learning about this myself, Lance gives you permission to fly a drone in controlled airspace. This airspace around here, Class G, is uncontrolled airspace. So you don't need the Lance app. So if you're thinking, I need to use the Lance app to fly within 30 because it's special flight rules, that's not the case. It's only if you're flying in restricted or controlled airspace. But there are restrictions for you to fly. You can fly your drone recreational between 15 and 30. Your drone must weigh less than 55 pounds. And it must be registered and marked. You have to register your drone with the FAA.
If it's under the 250 grams,
Not the,
then you still don't have to register.
Not the two. That's a great question.
I call them ants.
Good,
Yeah,
then you don't.
because it says all must be registered. To go on there and you say I'm under 250, it says you don't have to. So I called them. FAA said if you're under 250, you never have to register.
There you go. All right. There are NOTAMs, which are notices to airmen. Every pilot, before they fly, they read the notice and stuff. There's a special one, 1811 and 1812, that are specific to drone flying and drone pilots. Can you fly at night? Yes, pilot. You must be Part 107 rated. So you can fly if you're Part 107. You must, to get Part 107, you have to pass your knowledge test. Your drone must have anti-collision. Civil twilight. That's 15 minutes before and 15 minutes after sunrise, official sunrise and sunset. Civil twilight is not night flying. Therefore, you can fly without a Part 107 during the civil twilight periods. I'm sorry, 30 minutes before and after sunset. And a Part 107 is not required. And if you're in controlled airspace, you can use, even though it's not working very good, the land system to get night flying. And that is it. I had no clue when I started this what it was going to take in order to fly within 15 miles within the FRZ. As I said, I made every mistake. And it's because I either misread something, I read something into it, I didn't think, did they mean I had to do it exactly this way? And every mistake was because I didn't follow the absolute letter of the law. And then things along the way I learned, like the geolock. I didn't know that until I went to take my drone off and take off. So those are all things. But Dan will put in the chat window or something, I got an attachment that will give you each of the steps that I went over, the sites, where it is, everything. If you want to fly within 15 nautical miles, it will walk you through how to do it, where to get these documents that I just kind of went through, and that. Glad I did it, but man, it's a lot of work.